Welcome to Speak Up English Hub. C2 listening practice for improving your fluency in English.
Welcome to Speak Up English Hub for some advanced listening practice. In today's explainer, I'm putting on my senior business analyst hat to guide you, our young, ambitious entrepreneurs, through a real masterclass in long-term competitive advantage. We're going to dive deep into Hamilton Helmer's groundbreaking framework, the 7 powers. You see, if you want your startup to actually survive the grueling test of time, just having a clever idea, well, it's simply not going to cut it. You absolutely need a durable structural advantage. So let's jump right in and examine the literal DNA of business survival.
As your consultant today, I've organized our session into 6 key areas. We'll start with the foundations of benefits and barriers, then look at disruption with Netflix versus Kodak, explore customer lock-in strategies, and discuss building internal moats. After that, we'll do a quick active recall speed quiz to test your listening and wrap up with your personal action plan.
Moving right into part 1, foundations, benefit, and barrier. Let's get our baseline concepts straight. To have real, durable power in any market, your strategy absolutely has to overcome the inevitable roadblocks ahead. If it doesn't, well, your business is basically a sitting duck for the competition.
Notice how we're defining power here. We aren't just talking about your company's size or its revenue. We're talking about a very specific strategic position. For those of you just starting out, let's break down these 2 absolutely crucial concepts, the benefit and the barrier. The benefit means your strategic position creates advantages that massively outweigh your operational costs. And the barrier? Well, that's how your position looks to your competitors. From their side of the fence, challenging you needs to look practically insurmountable. Simply put, if you don't have at least one of these 2 foundational elements, a massive benefit or an ironclad barrier, your business is frankly completely vulnerable.
Okay, part 2, disruption, Netflix versus Kodak. Let's step into the real-world arena and see exactly how this plays out. We're going to contrast a company that scaled beautifully and built an incredible barrier against a giant that held all the power but completely failed to adapt.
Let's look at the hard numbers for a second, because Netflix perfectly illustrates our very first power, scale economy. Think back to 2012. Netflix decided to venture into original programming with shows like House of Cards, which cost an absolutely eye-watering $4.5 million per episode to make. But here's the catch. Because Netflix already had 30 million users, that massive upfront cost was diluted down to just 15 cents per user. Now imagine you're a scrappy startup streaming platform with, say, 3 million users, trying to produce that exact same show. Your cost per user? $1.50. That is 10 times higher than Netflix. So a scale economy exists when your cost of doing business drops as your user base grows. It makes it impossibly expensive for new competitors to even enter the market. Trying to outspend a giant with scale economy is literally like trying to drain the ocean with a teacup.
Now this brings us to the flip side of the coin. Look at Netflix's incredible foresight compared to Kodak's tragic decline. Netflix successfully pivoted from mailing DVDs to digital streaming back in 2007, totally securing their future. Kodak, on the other hand, held massive scale economy in physical film, but they were staring down the barrel of a digital revolution. They actually spent a ton of money looking for survival options, but they ultimately fell victim to our second power, counter-positioning. This happens when a new entrant brings in a successful new business model that the established giant either cannot or will not adopt. Kodak simply couldn't shift to digital photography without utterly destroying their massive, highly profitable film business. Counterpositioning is a game changer because it puts the disruptor in a nearly untouchable position. The giant is basically paralyzed by its own current success.
Moving on to part 3, customer lock-in strategies. Let's explore exactly how companies trap the market by locking their customers in, and we'll start with the ultimate battle of the networks.
So by 2010, LinkedIn had amassed over 70 million users. A startup called Branchout decided to try and tackle them, they piggybacking on Facebook's massive network. And you know what? While they did hit 17 million users, they eventually just plateaued and completely failed. Why? Well, because LinkedIn possessed our third power, network economy. In a network economy, the users aren't buying the product, the users are the product. The bigger the network gets, the more valuable it is to literally everyone involved. Branchout failed partly because people wanted to keep their work and personal life separate, for sure. But the real nail in the coffin was the insurmountable barrier of trying to build a comparable professional network entirely from scratch.
Now let's look at a totally different form of lock-in. And honestly, this statistic is absolutely staggering. In a study looking at enterprise software, specifically SAP users,
It turned out that 43% of them were actively unhappy with the customer service. Even crazier, half of them didn't even believe in the future success of SAP. But here's the wild part. 89% of those exact same unhappy users said they would continue to pay for and use the software anyway. No way, right?
So you have to ask yourself, why on earth would a business stay with a product they actively dislike? Well, that brings us straight to the fourth power, switching costs. SAP survives almost entirely on this power. Their customers stay because the sheer pain, the time, and the astronomical financial cost of retraining their entire workforce, replacing all their add-ons, and migrating years of data, it's just agonizingly high. It's kind of like staying in a house with a terribly leaky roof just because the cost and effort of moving all your heavy furniture across the country is way too overwhelming. To unseat a company with high switching costs, a competitor doesn't just need a slightly better product. They need something massively, unbelievably superior just to justify that painful transition.
All right, part 4, building unbeatable internal moats. Now we're looking inward. Let's examine the actual DNA of durable power by analyzing companies that built internal moats. These are deep structural advantages cultivated from within the company over a long period of time.
Back in 2005, Good Morning America ran this absolutely fascinating blind appraisal experiment. They bought a $6,600 diamond ring from Costco and a comparable $16,600 ring from Tiffany. The expert appraiser actually valued the Costco ring at $2,000 more than its retail price, and the Tiffany ring at $4,000 less. And yet, everyday customers will gladly pay 3 times more for the Tiffany ring. Why? Because of our fifth power, branding. People aren't just paying for the clout, they're paying for absolute trust, peace of mind, and authenticity on a really high-stakes purchase. Branding power takes decades to build, but once you have it, it allows for premium pricing and creates a virtually invincible barrier against newcomers.
Our sixth power is just beautifully illustrated by Pixar. When Disney bought Pixar, they weren't just buying up fancy computers or intellectual property. No, they were buying the exclusive brain trust of John Lasseter, Ed Catmull, and their incredible team. This is the sheer power of a cornered resource. It means you have exclusive access to something literally no one else has. It could be a specific patent, a rare material, or in Pixar's case, a magical mix of geniuses. Your competitors simply cannot replicate your success because they physically can't access the specific resource that's driving it.
And finally, we arrive at our seventh power, process power. Let's rewind to the 1960s. General Motors held a massive 48% market share in the US, while Toyota was sitting at a mere 0.1%. But trace it back to 1950, Toyota's founder had meticulously studied US factories and then spent decades building superior optimization systems deep into his company's DNA. Fast forward to 2014, and Toyota and GM are running neck and neck in market share. What's truly amazing here is that Toyota's methods weren't even a secret. They openly shared them with the world. But competitors still couldn't copy them because process power is all about long-term preparation. It's an inherent, complex support system embedded so deeply into a company's culture that you literally cannot just package it up and implement it overnight.
Okay, moving to part 5, active recall speed quiz. All right, entrepreneurs, it is time to put those advanced listening skills to the test. As your mentor today, I really want to make sure these concepts are sticking with you. So we're going to do a fast-paced exam review of what we've just covered. I'll give you a scenario and you guess the power. Ready?
Question 1. Which power makes it impossibly expensive for a brand new startup to produce a massive hit show like House of Cards? Think back to that math we did earlier with Netflix's 30 million users diluting that $4.5 million production cost. Got it in your head?
Exactly. It's scale economy. Because Netflix already had that massive user base, their per-user cost was driven down to literal pennies, which created a financial wall that smaller competitors just couldn't climb over. Okay, question 2. Which power allowed SAP to keep 89% of their entirely dissatisfied customers? Remember why those enterprise users felt completely trapped, even with terrible customer service reviews.
Spot on again. It's switching costs. The sheer amount of time, the painful data migration, and the massive employee training required to switch to a totally new platform created an unbreakable lock-in. They were essentially forced to stay.
And finally, part 6, your strategic entrepreneur roadmap. Excellent work on the quiz, guys. Let's wrap up our bootcamp today by turning all these theoretical observations into a really actionable guide for your own small businesses and startups. How do we actually apply this stuff today?
First things first, go ahead and take a screenshot of this power identification checklist. As an entrepreneur, you have to constantly evaluate your current position against this list. Which specific barrier do you currently hold against your competition? Do you have a cornered resource? Are you actively building process power? If you look at this list and realize you don't have any of these, well, you are currently operating without a safety net.
So here is your practical roadmap. Step 1. Clearly define your core benefit and your barrier to entry. Be honest with yourself. Step 2. Recognize that powers like process and branding take a lot of time. You need to actively start your long-term preparation right now to weave these into your company's DNA. And step 3, and hey, this is the harsh truth straight from Hamilton Helmer, if you honestly evaluate your business and realize no strategic position exists and one can't be built, you absolutely must be willing to pivot or just pack up and move to greener pastures.
Because at the end of the day, strategy alone just isn't enough. You need a durable, structural advantage to actually survive the long game. Having a great product, that's just the ticket to enter the arena. But having power, that is how you win the battle. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. As you look at your own venture today, which of these 7 powers will you deliberately choose to start building tomorrow?
Thanks for being with us. See you on our next video. Let's speak up.